This is the second video in this series of videos we've got on how to produce the task that requires us to convert a Word document into a website. And we've got to the stage where we've produced this HTML document that is rendering perfectly okay. We've got the headings here, we've got the paragraphs working out. There is one little glitch in it that is causing us a problem that you probably may not have realized. There was one part of the text that actually had an angled bracket that showed the word div, and because the browser thinks that that's something that it's supposed to use as a piece of the code, then it's not actually rendering it here. So we'll deal with that as we go. But going back to our learning guide again, though, so we've taken this, applying HTML documents to the document text. We're moving through this, and I'd given a bit of an idea of how this thing is structured. And here's the structure of the document that we want to end up with. We want a two-column floated layout. So we've got our body tag, we've got that in already. We haven't got these div tags in. And here I'm showing how you can actually put in a div tag and then give it a class. And that class refers to the styling that we'll be using in the CSS. So we've got the header here, we've got a sidebar to put our menu in, and we've got a content panel, and we've got a footer at the bottom, and the various closing divs. So we need to go back to our notepad again and start to put in some of that, some of the tags that are required for this. So the first thing we've got is in the body we're going to have a container div, if you recall. So I'm going to put in a div here, and I'm going to make it class equals, and then I'll put in my two quotation marks, and in here I'll call this one, actually I'll copy this now because this is going to speed things up for the other divs. So if I copy that and now just put in here the name for this one is container, and this is the div that will hold all the information. At the very end here I'm going to put in, just before the closing body tag, I'm going to put in the closing tag for that div. And something I can put in here that is going to help me down the track is a comment. I can put in a comment by putting in the angled bracket, an exclamation mark, and two dashes, and then I'll put in here, this is the closing div tag for the container div, and then I'll put in another two dashes and a closing angled bracket, and that'll remind me that what that closing div actually applies to there. And now up here I need to do a div for my header, so this will be my header div, and so I'll just paste again because I've already got that on my clipboard, and in here I'll put div class equals header, and then again I'll need to put in a closing tag here, and I'll come back and put in that extra information in a tick. And now I'll put another div in here, and this div, oh no, actually that's not my header there. I need to have a separate header, so that H1 doesn't apply to the header, I beg your pardon. So I'll put in another div here, this div I'm going to make the, oh, I should have used my paste again, so I'll paste that in here, and I'm going to put in here, this is going to be my sidebar div. So down here is the sidebar, and in here I'll just type the word menu for the minute and come back and fix that, and I'll put the closing div in for that, and and then the next div we need is the content div. So again, paste here and change the words, put the word in here, content, for that final bit there. Now I made a bit of a mistake. I shouldn't have put this H1 in here. I'll cut that out of there, and I'll put it in where it belongs, which is in the content div, and so that should have stayed there. In the header we will put in, the header goes here, and that'll just remind me what goes in there, and I should have put the menu goes here. Oh, the menu goes here in that sidebar, and I'll just give it a bit of space here so we can more clearly see where that fits. Okay, now I did say I would use this convention of putting a my advice of where I'll copy this comment that I put in for the closing container div, and I'll use it up here. So in my that was my container div. For the header div, I'll put this in here, paste that in there, and this is my advice that this is the closing tag for the header div. Then I'll paste this in here and put in, this is the closing tag for the sidebar div, and this is just giving me advice of where things fit. Now I haven't actually put in a closing tag for the content div, so that has to go in down here before the closing tag for the container div. So I'll just put some more space in here, paste that in there, and put in a closing div. Oh, I need to change this to the content and put in the actual closing div tag here. And now we should have all the divs in. Let me just double check. So we've got the content div in there, that's great, and we've got our sidebar div, and we've got our header div, okay, and our container div. Let me save that and let me see what's happening here. So if I now go and I'll go back to my HTML document and I'll refresh it, and hopefully it should look pretty much the same as it did before, other than saying the header goes here, and we haven't got the menu appearing then. So styling web document, so there's something wrong there. Let me go. Now this is something that I want people to understand, that there's going to be issues with making little mistakes, and here immediately I see there's the closing tag for the div, and I haven't put the closing angle bracket for the sidebar. And so hopefully if I save this and go back again and refresh, yeah, the menu goes here. So we've got the header, the menu, and then we've got the content. And the last thing that I haven't put in there and should have done is down at the bottom here, I should have put in the footer. So that goes underneath the content, but it goes above the closing tag for the container. So if I paste here, what have I got? So I'll put a closing tag in for this, and I'm going to say that this is the closing tag for the footer, and above that I'm going to do the opening tag for that. Div class equals footer. Okay, and in here I'll just put in the footer goes here, and I'll save that now, and let's see that if we've got everything rendering correctly. So down at the bottom here, yeah, we have now got the footer goes here, we've got the area where our menu goes, and where now this doesn't look any different much to what we had before, but let me just show you something that just indicates how these divs work. So if I, for example, go up to the content div and say in here I'll put in some styling. This is inline styling. We'll be later on putting in styling that applies to the whole document through a file, but let me just show you here. So style equals, and I'll put in my quotation marks again, and I'll put in the selector, so I'll put background color, and that's hyphenated, and I need to make sure I use the American spelling, and I'll make it yellow. And now if I save this, with a little bit of luck, the background color of the content div should be yellow, and there we are, it is. So it's not in the menu, and it's not in oh, it is in the footer too, so I've done something wrong there too. Again, these little things are going to come and bug us here. So the div class footer, what have I done wrong? I've got a closing div there, div class footer, and I've got that set out there. And I've got I have got the closing tag for the content div. This is the closing tag for the content div. So let me just double check here what's happening here. that shouldn't be yellow in the footer, so I need to resolve this issue. I'll do that in the next video. Okay.